Today is Veterans Day, and I want to thank all my fellow veterans out there. I know and understand what they're going through and their thoughts and feelings about how they feel about their country and about our rights and freedoms. Their willingness to put their life on the line, to leave their families and their homes and serve our country. Years ago, I was in Desert Storm, and it was a difficult time, but I was grateful to be able to be willing to sacrifice for this country and for what we believe in and for our freedoms. Today we are very grateful that we have the opportunity to return our country to constitutionality, to the rule of law, and try to erase 4 of the most disastrous years of policy in United States history. It's difficult to see at the time the big picture of what really happened, and it usually takes years, if not decades, before people finally understand, until political history is finally written, that we see clearly all the things that happened during a president's tenure. But we went through 4 great years up until COVID hit, from 2016 to 2020. And then we had 4 years of high inflation, high interest rates, economic downturn, and the weaponization of the justice system against a political opponent. And this is one of the most dangerous things that could happen to any country, and that is the weaponization of the justice system of one party against another party. It's particularly dangerous in the United States of America, where every citizen has the right to keep and to bear arms and to defend themselves against tyranny. If you want to know about this dangerous situation, we can take a walk back into history. And this is one of the dangerous reasons why we should not be erasing our history in our schools, and with this new woke culture, is because if we erase history, we are doomed to repeat it. You can ask the French about the French Revolution and what led up to and caused the French Revolution. And it was about the classes that had been established and the justice system being used as a tool against one particular group of people or class. Now, one of the key proponents of the left today, the Democrat Party, they have gone so far to the left that they have become the party of the Marxist and the Socialist. And of course they're very good at projecting, and so they're always calling Republicans and the right Marxists. But if you study what true Marxism is and what true socialism is, they are the epitome of the definition. I'm going to read to you what the definition of socialism is. Okay, since the definition of socialism is a body of doctrine, what attack can be made against it other than a war of doctrine? If you find this doctrine to be false, absurd, and evil, then refute it. And the more the false, evil, and absurd it is, the easier it will be to refute. Socialists desire to practice legal plunder, not illegal plunder. They like to use the law as their own weapon. And once the law is on the side of socialism, how can it be used against socialism? So, what is legal plunder? Basically, legal plunder, and this is from the book The Law by Frederick Bastiat. And this book was written, the law was first published in June of 1850 by Frederick Bastiat. He was a French economist, statesman, and author. He did most of his writing during the years just before and immediately following the French Revolution. All right, let's get back to this. So basically, what is legal plunder? How is legal plunder to be identified? Quite simply, see if the law takes from some person what belongs to them and gives to some other person to whom it does not belong. See if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another by doing what that citizen himself cannot do without committing a crime. And so, in other words, Letitia James taking millions and millions of dollars from President Donald J. Trump and giving it to the state of New York for a crime that was not committed. The banks were not harmed, there was no crime committed, and everybody received the money that they agreed upon. And yet, the corrupt judge still found that Trump had exaggerated his values of his property and therefore committed some kind of fraud. And our law does not provide for crimes without harm. That's the basis of U.S. law. There has to be some kind of a harm for a crime to be committed. And yet here New York used the basis of what they claim to be the law, weaponized it against President Trump, and legally plundered, using the law, they plundered from him millions of dollars to put in their own coffers. So what is the dangers of this legal plunder? No society can exist unless the laws are respected to a certain degree. The safest way to make laws respected is to make them respectable. When law and morality contradict each other, the citizen has the cruel alternative of either losing his moral sense or losing his respect for the law. These two evils are of equal consequence, and it would be difficult for a person to choose between them. So either they choose the unjust law or they lose their morality because they realize it's an unjust law, but they still support it. That will lead to the downfall of this country and to a great bloody revolution. We are a free-armed society. When the Democrats use the law to go after Republicans over and over again, not just President Trump, but people like the J6 individuals, like Rudy Giuliani, like there's at least 20, Roger Stone, Alex Jones, we could go down through the list, Steve Bannon. All these individuals were targeted by the left. They used the law as a tool of injustice and legally plundered and put these individuals in jail or stole from them what they owned and what they have built up. This is the very definition of legal plunder, and it will lead to absolute revolution in this country if it is not stopped. I am very grateful that Donald J. Trump got into office, is going to be getting into office in January of 2025. Because it's my firm belief that if Trump would have lost this election, we would have been in a serious revolution. And I don't know who the left thinks they are, but when you see these individuals that can't even decide what sex they are, what gender, they can't decide on a hair color for the day, they can't define what a woman is. Many of them live off the welfare program of the state. Many of them are government employees that have never had a hard day of labor in their life. These individuals are stirring up our Constitution and trying to destroy it, trying to weaponize our justice system against us as citizens and against our leadership to bring down America. They've cast open the border to let in criminals, rapists, to let in fentanyl and all these illegal drugs and things that are killing and harming our citizens. They're allowing human trafficking across the borders, unknown and untold diseases. We can't even, as citizens, we can't even let our kids go to school without having a vaccination chart. And yet we're letting millions and millions of undocumented immigrants without any vaccination, without any care or concern about what those people may be carrying or bringing with them into our country. Many of the communicable diseases have been completely eliminated out of America. And yet here we are letting these undocumented, unvaccinated individuals into our country. Sooner or later it's going to catch up with us. And I hope without delay that Trump is able to get rid of the criminals first and then slowly work his way through the rest of the illegals that came here illegally. The second they stepped into our country illegally, they became criminals, and remove them from our country. Now, I have no doubt that there's a lot of these people that are good, honest, hardworking individuals. But if that's the case, then they need to repent of their sins, change their ways, go back to their own country, rethink their paradigm, and come here legally. Fill out the paperwork, learn about America, be able to say the Pledge of Allegiance, be able to identify our laws and why it's wrong for illegal immigration, and then get their green card and come here and work with their skills that they have. Anything else than this is absolute destruction of our country. Now, in the following days and weeks on this channel, I want to go through and identify what the deep state global banking elite cabal is and how it works, and identify who these people are and what their ultimate goals are. Unfortunately, we hear the right media, we hear President Trump, we hear all of our Republican leaders, our conservative leaders, voicing concern about this deep state, about this global cabal, but they're not identifying who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. And until we identify those people and what they're doing, it's difficult to see that as a reality and to be able to face what's really going on. But as I mentioned, our greatest challenges that we're facing in America today is the weaponization of the justice system, legal plunder through socialism, socialistic programs, getting rid of and not adhering to the rule of law, which starts at our borders, which starts at the borders of our country, and holding those accountable that have violated these things. Because until we hold those individuals accountable, nobody will respect those laws, the Constitution, and what they say, what they teach us and tell us. The individuals that have perpetuated these things in America need to be held accountable. Now, the left-wing media, the mainstream media, is screaming and crying and fearful, saying that Trump is going to enact vengeance against his enemies. I don't believe that he will. But he has a solemn responsibility to address the things that are a violation of our Constitution and the rule of law. He has a solemn responsibility to address the southern border that's wide open, and those individuals that are responsible for allowing that border to be wide open. The U.S. Constitution gives the president not just the right, but the absolute necessity to control and protect our citizens and each state from the invasion of illegal immigration, to protect and defend our borders. And Joe Biden failed to do that. Kamala Harris failed to do that. And unlike President Trump, who faced charges that were made up against him, in every one of these cases, the charges that were brought against him were unprecedented charges that had no basis in our legal system prior to the time they were brought against Trump. But unlike these charges, there are actual crimes committed by Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi in her weaponization of January 6th and her collusion with Capitol Police and the FBI to try to set up and frame Trump. These are all treasonous acts. All these acts need to be held, these people need to be held accountable for these things. They cannot be allowed to stand. The fact that California and Arizona are still counting ballots a week after the election is an absolute joke. It's an absolute travesty. It's a laughing stock. The elementary school that I went to as a child could have counted these ballots and verified the signatures in a few short days. And yet these Democrat-run states cannot get their act together and count these ballots. And if you go through the list of what's remaining in the election, it's mainly in the House. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 outstanding House races. And in almost every single one, there's only 2 of these 12. So out of 12, 10 that are going to go to the 2 of them are going to go to the Democrats, and the other 10 are going to go to the Republicans. And yet these Democrat-run states are dragging their feet and trying to do everything in their power to overthrow and overturn that election. They do not want the House to have the majority. But right now, where it stands, in Alaska, we have Nick Bache, who has 80% of the vote is reporting, and he has 49.4% of the vote, and he is in the lead. How is Alaska, the least populous state in the United States, cannot even count their ballots? Well, I can tell you what that is. Those are being counted by a Democrat-run county in that state. And I don't know how to pronounce this. David Sherwick is 96% reporting, and he's up 52%. He's got 52% of the vote. Juan Ciscarmani in Arizona, District 6, 49.1% with 83% reporting. So he's going to win that race. He's a Republican. John Darte, Republican Party, California, 13, 51.3% of the vote with 61% reporting. California, get your act together. 61% a week after the election? Come on, what's going on here? David Vallado, Republican Party, California District 22, 77% reporting, and he's got 53.6% of the vote. George Whitesides, he's a Democrat in California District 27. He's 50.9% of the vote and 80% reporting. So their Democrats are going to win that seat. California number 41, Ken Calvert, he's a Republican, 51.4% and 70% reporting. So he's going to win that race. Michelle Steele, a Republican Party, 51% with 80% reporting. So she's going to win that seat. And here's another Democrat from California, District 47, Dave Min, 50.5% of the vote with 80% reporting. Colorado, he's a Republican, Gabe Evans, 49% of the vote with 96% reporting, and yet they still have not called that race. It's absolutely ridiculous. Iowa number 1, Marionette Milley, Republican, 50.1% of the vote, 99% reporting. Why has that not been called? 99% reporting. And last here is Zach Nunn, Republican. It looks like they may have called this one finally. 51.9% of the vote he received and 99% reporting. So you have high 90s, high 80s, and high 70s. They still have not called these races. It's ridiculous. We need to absolutely we need a constitutional amendment that requires the states to have all of their numbers in and done within 48 hours of the election. If they want to mess around with their midterms or with their state votes, as long as it doesn't affect the federal elections, let the states do whatever they want. But these federal elections need to be decided within 48 hours in the very least. I mean, you've got Texas and Florida, New York, some of our most populous, largest states, population-wise, and they've got their vote in and done by within, 12 hours of the vote when votes were cast on November 5th, on Super Tuesday. So, whether or not there's any cheating or attempted steal of any election going on, it doesn't look good. It looks terrible to the American people. It looks terrible to these foreign countries that are looking to America as the beacon of truth and hope and freedom and of an example. And we need to do better than this. And our federal government needs to, without delay, make some constitutional amendments that requires voter ID, that requires safeguards on our elections, and that the count is in and tallied on election day or shortly thereafter. And that's precisely what the Constitution says, and that's what needs to happen so that our elections can be perceived as free our elections can be perceived as fair. I believe we should get rid of all machines. As far as it's okay, I believe, to use a tabulator machine, but if there's ever any question on the vote or a vote is very close, then those votes should be recounted by hand to verify. If any machines are ever found to be out, then they need to be destroyed, and whoever manufactured them needs to be held accountable for those errors. And there needs to be safeguards and penalties, severe penalties, for those that interfere in our voting and in our elections here in the United States. That should be the most sacred, one of the most sacred things that we are able to do. Our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are based upon our right to vote and to choose our leaders. And if our leaders don't protect us and uphold the laws, then we remove them and replace them with men and women that will. And this needs to happen without delay in this country. Anyway, I wish everyone a safe and happy Veterans Day. Special thanks to all our veterans out there. Give them a big hug and a handshake and thank them for their service. And I ask each of you to join us in the following days, weeks, and months ahead to pray for President Trump and for the leadership of this country, that we will be able to get that we'll be able to get back on track, that we'll be able to get the rule of law in our states, in our cities, to protect our citizens and our families, to help our children in their schools. I pray that you will join in prayer with me for our country, for our leaders, for our veterans, and making America the best place to live in the world again, and being that beacon of light, freedom, and hope to the rest of the world. We welcome immigrants with open arms, but they need to come here legally. God bless America, and I pray you'll bless each one of you. Thank you.